Hi, I'm Dave March, and welcome to Land of Confusion, the Ricochet show by members, for members, where we interview members. And this is my co-host.
Member. Hi, I'm Don Tillman, and what he said, yes, this is what we do.
You're not from Palo Alto this week?
Oh, yes, sir. Palo Alto with the guitars. Yeah. And it's a beautiful day today. Blue sky, lovely. Yeah.
It's nice around here, too.
A little chillier day, but yeah, it's very nice. And who do we have today?
We have Muleskinner, Weasel, Wrangler.
I love that.
Yep.
Or you could call me Dave if you want to be in the.
Oh yeah, another Dave.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's going to be confusing.
Well, then you just have to call me Tory Warwriter. That'll make it easy for everyone. Yeah.
Hi, welcome all. This is what we do. We grab Ricochet members and see what they're doing. See what interests them, what they like. What I like to ask, like, what's the view from where you sit? Kind of questions, but anything goes.
So where are you right now, there, Muleskinner?
I'm sitting here in the middle of the country. I'm in Nebraska.
Okay. Oh, our president was just there.
Yes.
Did you catch any of it, or?
I caught a little of it surfing around last night between the gym and some other projects.
I visited a family vacation thing. I visited Omaha, Nebraska a few years ago. Beautiful.
Well, you were telling me earlier that you're an economist with the local state government. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've been in the Department of Economic Development for about 10 years. Before that, I was the chief economist at the Department of Revenue. So it's pretty interesting work. I think, being a government guy here and on this platform seems a little bit odd, maybe, but I always figure you got to have some. You want somebody like me, rather than
Well, again, you've got a different view. You've got a different vantage point here, where what you see is very different from what we see. So I'm totally interested.
Yeah. So it's about a 60-person agency. We run the federal community development block grant programs and several business recruitment efforts in the state, and some efforts to make sure that our workforce development is up to snuff and providing the kinds of employment and employees that potential employers are looking for. We think we've done a pretty fair job right now. We're starting up a new economic incentive program, so we get to be the group that works with the businesses and market the program, and then providing tax credits that get used at the Department of Revenue. So we're out trying to scrounge businesses that are looking for a new place to land.
Well,
have you talked to that hairdresser in San Francisco? Nancy Pelosi's hairdresser.
Yeah, well, as you can see, I don't have a whole lot of, but
no, I meant me neither.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of hairdressers in California that should move to Nebraska by the sound of it.
We've run into a few manufacturers that are not real happy with the shutdowns in their states, and we never really shut down. Like South Dakota, there was some.
So this might be an opportunity to entice some businesses to your state, right?
Yeah.
How's that? Is it any success stories? Have you any stories of note?
Well, we've been doing a lot of tech, especially data centers. They seem to need a lot of water and a lot of room, and they kind of like places where there's not a lot of people. So, and they're well connected, and that was kind of like maybe one of the early things with the SAC headquarters in Omaha.
Yep.
That all the old 800 numbers for whatever product you wanted to buy, at the bottom it said or send mail to Omaha.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I always wondered why that was, and they said, well, they had lots and lots of redundant phone lines coming in, and this was something they could shut off if it was needed. So
you're able to bring in some data centers to the state.
Yeah,
nice. And so obviously those are buildings with an awful lot of computers in them, and they eat up a lot of electricity, although not compared to like a lot of serious industrial manufacturing, right? Yeah. And they're certainly low polluting. Any issues come up with those?
Not really.
Good.
No, Nebraska is kind of odd. The public power state, so the utilities are government. They're their own governments, but they are not Con Edison. It's Omaha Public Power, Nebraska Public Power.
I've always, the one thing about IT data centers, right, is that they eat up a lot of power and they generate a lot of heat, but it's nothing compared with serious industry, like, steel mill or something, right? Which is enormous. And it's all totally controllable, right? You can back it down, ramp it up anytime you want. It's not a big deal at all.
Heavy.
And any kind of workload you can smooth out over the day. It's just not a problem, really.
They really love those data centers because the load is so steady that you can work around a lot of other things. It really helps.
Right. With respect to delivering power, right. Having a steady power consumption increases the efficiency of your generators. Mm-hmm. And that's actually a problem with like wind power, because it comes on and off.
Yep.
So often it makes it's actually, I'm not an expert on this, but it actually makes the regular generation facilities run a little less efficiently. Some of it gets averaged out over multiple windmill areas, but apparently not as much.
Isn't that what Enron did to California back in the day?
No, it was a little different. What they did to California. They did it real good.
What they did in California.
Well, that was brownouts. They had intentional brownouts. I remember this vividly in 2000 because working at a company that was hit by these. They intentionally set up the generating facility so that they would run like some sort of test on. They had to take one down for testing when it was needed most, right? Forcing them to turn off power or brownout for some areas, and they did it just to wield power. It was really awful. That was an Enron thing. That was 2000, I remember. Yeah,
weren't they also? The state was also buying power from companies that were generating their own with their backup generators at the cost of they had to buy it at the cost of production.
Oh, I don't know that one, but the state does buy a bunch of power from neighboring states.
Yeah.
I think every state does. But.
Yeah, I don't. If there's good electricity available nearby, it's sure.
Yeah, I understand.
But we have California's power generation is weirdly clean, at least so they claim. We get a lot of it from hydro.
Yeah.
Well, as does Nebraska. Or you got the Missouri River, right?
Not so much.
Not so much.
Some dams are in South Dakota and
South Dakota. But we get a lot of it from the hydro from the snow melt in the Sierras comes down, and they you get some power that way, and some solar and some wind, and a lot of it's pretty clean. But I guess they get a lot of it also. California gets a lot of it from neighboring states too.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of that snow melt coming down.
Yeah, that's just such a blessing. This place would be
We have a lot of snow and
be a freaking desert
in this place.
A large, like huge fraction of the where I live would be just a desert because we get no regular rain. And so there's, we're totally reliant on the snow melt.
In Ontario, it's a huge amount of nuclear power. I think it's like 40% is nuclear power. That's because back during the 50s and 60s, it was the new cool thing, and the government decided to build a lot of them.
Yeah, cool.
Then we also have, of course, Niagara Falls, and that's like one of the best, greatest electricity generators in the world.
Enormous.
Yeah, there are some. Used to have 2 nuke plants. They're down to 1 now, but there's some other interesting things. Natural gas they were using. There's a company that purchased an old coal-fired plant and converted it to a hydrogen power plant. They were using the natural gas to make carbon black, and the byproduct from that was hydrogen. So they ran that through a power plant and making electricity there.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Anyways, where did you grow up, and what was it like there?
I grew up in the Great Sandhills of Nebraska. It's about a quarter of the state and a fraction of the population.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a great place to grow up. There were not a lot of people and not a lot of things that you could just run wild.
What part of the state is the Sandhills? I'm not familiar.
Pretty much the north central part. It's about maybe a quarter of the area of the state, but it's grows a lot of grass, and it's just about perfect cattle country.
Oh, excellent.
So, we all learned how to do a lot of things from a young age, and got a lot of experience and ability to run off and do other things. So.
Oh yeah, I can. Looking at it now, it's pretty crazy. Nice little.
You whipped out the map. Excellent.
Yeah, put up the map. Yep. So you're growing up out there. I guess growing up in that kind of place is kind of a conservative place. Were you always in on it, or did you ever have like some sort of useful spurt of bad decision making?
Oh, there's always bad decisions, but no, I guess one thing, coming from a really large extended family in a small place, you kind of learn how to get along, and that's kind of a skill that's I've noticed with a term limited legislature, things like that. You don't really seem to see people with those kinds of skills. Nobody's going anywhere, so you got to be nice. Learn how to work with people, and it's something that seems to be used to have before term limits, and I suspect that term limits kind of caused that.
So I know Don's a big fan of term limits. I'm a little iffier on them. What do you think that is it just the turnover does work in Nebraska, or what?
I think the turnover is by itself not a bad thing. I think that the average, they set 2 4-year terms, and I think the average in the body was about 8 years anyway. So it wasn't really turning them over any faster. It was just making sure that they all turned over. And there was a time, I think, when you came in before term limits, there were things that maybe a rep wanted to do and kind of had those goals in mind, but they had a long time to do it. They had a long time to learn. They didn't have a set amount of time to learn the system and learn what needs to happen and work all that stuff through. Now it's 4 years and take your shot and better get it quick. And if you don't, then tempers start to run a little shorter and they don't really take the long view.
I was originally against term limits. I thought the idea of limiting who you can vote for was, after the term had ended, it effectively limited who you could vote for. And I thought, that's not good. But we do want our representatives to not be political professionals. We want them to actually represent people. We want them to actually, be regular citizens who run their businesses or what have you, or professionals in their own field, contribute their work, their time and effort for politics, as opposed to being a professional politician. So for me, that would be the best. And I thought of a clever thing for for Congress. I think, of course, currently Congress is not term limited, and people said we should have term limits. I thought of a better way. I thought you should only be allowed to have to be reelected for office, to return to office, if the budget is balanced. And so you see, you can have lots of terms if you balance the budget. And if you don't balance, it lets you spend over the budget if you really need to for emergencies and stuff. So I think it's kind of a nice, that would be a nice solution, nice incentive.
If there was a 4-year term, maybe that might be okay. But your Congress, you have 2-year terms for your Congress people. You're just going to flip through them. I think the Republicans, the way that they run Congress when they're in power, works out that you get artificial term limits. The fact that if you get in, you do your time, you get to your two terms as a committee chair, and then you're out of committee chairs, and you go back to being a general congressman. And most people, after they've had their committee term, chair term, will leave. Now, you don't get that when the Democrats are in charge. They change the rules so that they don't do that. But my problem is institutional knowledge is lost. And then that institutional knowledge remains in the hands of the bureaucrats, who are long service term professionals, who are now going to just, you're a congressman, you come in and you don't have it. You might be out pretty quickly. Unlike just when you're getting to know how everything works, you're now out.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. At some point, maybe I'll find a political science grad student that's looking for something to work on. But it would seem like if you took a simple way to maybe measure that would be to take a look at the bills that have come out before and after, and how many sections of statute they cover. Because now there used to be these really comprehensive bills that would change, that would get at whatever problem they were trying to solve and work through a lot of sections. And now it just seems to be sort of band-aids on one side, and the other bills are shorter and they don't do near as much. They don't fix near as much.
Oh, I'm guessing the congressmen don't actually write the bills.
I'm sure they don't.
Yeah, it'd be mostly their staffs.
But the outlines, the drafts, what it is they're trying to accomplish, tend to, I think, tend to get smaller and simpler as you, with term limits, people with less experience. But, or on the other hand, you have states with that have to have balanced budgets, then your system doesn't really work.
Yeah. Well, the difference is I think states can get by on having balanced budgets, but the federal government doesn't have that same luxury, because you never know when you're going to be suddenly planes are falling out of the sky on your buildings, or or you have a disaster like the one we're going through right now. So.
Yeah, and states can't print money, so
yeah,
there's
that
that.
too.
Yeah.
money printer go brr.
Yeah, we had that
My
in the
favorite.
Depression, where one of the provinces tried to float its own currency. That was a fun time.
Yeah.
So what else is there? So we were talking a little earlier about how we all think the election's going to go and all the polling. Muleskinner says he thinks Trump's going to win. I think we're all kind of in general agreement on that one. And I'm not buying all the doom and gloom coming out of the media. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. And the way you said that was very interesting. Doom and gloom coming out of the media.
Mhm.
And I look at the who's running Biden rallies, and they do not look like happy affairs. That's a gloomy looking bunch. So it looks like and Biden's a gloomy guy. So I mean, see, the candidates there are gloomy. Their supporters are gloomy, and the media is gloomy all at the same time. That's really consistent, and that's not good. There's somebody, I don't remember who, proposed this rule that the candidate with the happier supporters wins.
Mhm.
And some Trump supporters are pretty happy.
Right? Oh my God.
Oh
Well,
my
when you're, I've experienced a lot of campaigns. I've been run campaigns, been in political campaigns here in Canada, and the fact that the idea that the leader of the opposing campaign is going to stop campaigning 10 days before the election is crazy.
Yeah, well, yeah. So Biden's got this problem where the more we see of him, the worse it gets.
Mhm.
The more opportunity for gaffes, the more opportunity for embarrassments. So it makes sense for him to put a lid on activities, but that's such a weird situation, right?
Mhm.
Just so strange.
What would he do without COVID?
Yeah,
Really
right.
look bad.
That's a good point.
Well, I think without COVID, he would be able to get rallies because what would happen is you'd get like a famous musician who would come in and they'd pack the stands with people who want to see the musician more than him, which is what happened with Hillary in 2016. So he would be able to do that kind of stuff, and he wouldn't have anything. So he's like, you got freaking Bruce Springsteen says I'm going to support Biden, and they do a rally and it's really just a Bruce Springsteen concert with Biden being there. That would probably have been what would have happened. And then you wouldn't have
Obama did that.
Yeah.
Obama did that a few times. I remember in 2016 there was one really big concert with the Decemberists, who were really popular back then.
Mhm.
And I think we used to grab one of their songs for the Ricochet theme song or something, or it could be someone else. I forget. But they were a really popular band, apparently pretty good. And Obama showed up at one of their big concerts and claimed that those concert goers, were his supporters.
Yep.
And he got that way. But yeah, Biden this week, we had musical guests, John Bon Jovi and Cher. So there you go.
Yep.
Tiny turnouts for those. It just looked really sad.
Mm-hmm. So how's the feeling in Nebraska there, Muleskinner?
Oh, it's the second and third district are going to be Trump for sure, or the first and third. The second is where Omaha is. Nebraska's like Maine, can split its electoral votes by district. So it's probably one of the reasons that Trump was in Omaha yesterday. That and being across the river from Iowa. But I think that district is kind of interesting. There was a lot of thought that the sitting Republican congressman was in trouble. The Democrat that he defeated came out and supporting the Republican. And the and one of the Democratic office holders there, a county attorney in Douglas County, just switched parties to Republican.
Oh, wow.
And so they had, I think the candidate there is sort of an AOC wannabe, and
Wow.
it's not wearing real well.
Okay.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
But
That's quite the story.
it's hard to say where that'll wind up. I mean, polls don't seem to say that it's close, but
Yeah, well, actually a lot of state polls are tightening up, which is what I think, and the aggregate polls are showing crazy things. Like, I just don't believe Biden's 15 points ahead in Michigan by every standard. Like, everything I'm hearing coming out from any credible media out of Michigan and some of the people out of Wisconsin is that it's much tighter for Wisconsin, and Michigan is like, they just hate Whitmer so much they're not going to vote. And it's just, and other, like, some of the other factors seem to be coming in. There's a predicted website you can go to, and it's where people actually are putting their money on, and
Right.
it's not breaking heavily for Trump, but I think it's giving you the more realistic response of it's giving a 3-2 to Biden. And I think that's a bit more 60-40 split is a much more likely odds than he's just at 90%. I just don't see that, how that could possibly be true.
Well, it reminds me of 2016, right? That happened.
Yeah.
And
But I think people are
the
lying to
Stanford
pollsters.
poll, the Stanford poll had 99%. The Princeton poll had 99%. The Huffington Post poll had 98%.
Yeah.
In 2016, just crazy.
Yeah. And I think people, in a way that we call it the shy Tory syndrome up here, where you have people who don't want to say they're going to vote conservative when they are. I think conservatives, even proud Trump growing conservatives, are deliberately lying to the Democrats when the pollsters come up. And the other situation is the people who are answering the polling now are people who still have phones, and they're also people who have nothing else to do, and really are the people who have nothing better to do, the guys who are going to actually turn up on election day. That's your basic polling thing. You're not getting a lot of the partisan right-wing guys who might skew the poll a bit more efficiently, or if you're getting them, they're lying to you because they want to screw with you.
Also, I don't trust the polls in their intent. I don't think they have we've got an economist here who can consider this. Do polling groups have an economic incentive to deliver accurate polls, or can they make more money by accepting money for a skewed poll? And when after the election, before the election, do they? What's their reputation like? If enough polling companies are all equally wrong, you can't blame the polling companies, right? So, what do you think, Mr. Economist? How the economics of polling work?
I've been wondering about that. I saw a pollster the other night that was saying that actually he thinks that most of those are trying to drive opinion. They've gotten out of the measurement business and into the driving opinion. But you would think that, and if I knew what was going on for sure, I would guess, though, that maybe the real money is in the internal polling that large candidates have that are trying to really figure out where they're at, where they need to be, who they need to reach, and what the message is. I suspect that most, at least big campaigns, have someone like that on board, and they may not be the Gallup or Roper or whoever, whichever well-known.
Right. Now some polling companies do most of their business outside of political polling. and
Yeah.
they're trusted sources for, like large company wants to poll potential customers in a given market or something like that. And if the polling company has that as their business, it's really important that they get a reputation for accuracy so they can, so they can thrive as a business. And I think you'll find, my guess would be, you'll find that those companies avoid polling and avoid the political polls because there's no money for being accurate there.
I suspect so. That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is if you've got a reputation within that market for doing good consumer polling or that kind of ad polling or some other run-of-the-mill things, that it probably doesn't matter how good or bad your presidential polling is.
Now, I think the 538 is like the worst for a couple reasons. One is that it's the organization is an outgrowth of the Daily Kos, of a left-wing blog. That's their background. They were started out that way. And secondly is they post numbers to ridiculous levels of precision. They're like 4 digits of accuracy for a number where the first digit is not correct. And I think that's really crazy. However, it does bring more eyeball clicks because now they can report changes at 100 times because they report so many digits accuracy. When the rightmost digit changes a little bit, they can go, oh, we have something to report. And so they if you're in the reporting events business, which they kind of are, that's how you draw eyeball clicks when you have news to report. That cranks up the data factor of 100, even though it's gibberish. So I think that's the and it makes them look like really, the science nerds, math nerds, wear white lab coats, and because they're reporting it to 4 digits of accuracy. But yeah, I think the 538 is the worst case of that.
Yeah, if I was going to be in the forecasting business again, I'd use the Gene Dixon effect, pick something and then that seems a little outlandish, and then I happen to get lucky, then I'm the guy that called it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd call a recession every year until I got one.
Oh, well, I remember my father taught polling for 25 years
Oh, really?
For politics. And he would just get so mad when polls would come out. And he's like, this is a garbage poll. They only interviewed 400 people. The margin on error on this is plus or minus 4.5%. That's a 9-point swing. You can't get an accurate poll on a 9-point swing. He's just like, this is insanity. So, yeah, I got my early polling knowledge from him. So to me, any poll that's not less than 1,000 people is just like throw it away.
You can't
That's
afford
a really
a
good
landslide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I was looking at Trafalgar, which is one of the British ones, and they have it neck and neck with a 1-point lead for Biden, which in most normal situations would mean the Republicans would win, because there's usually a 3% soft that's not on a margin of swing on that. So, yeah, that's what I would say is going on. Like Wisconsin, according to Trafalgar, Joe Biden is at 47.5 and Trump's at 47.1.
I believe that.
Pennsylvania, according to them, 48.4 for Trump, 47.6 for Biden. And I think that's going to be even higher now because of what's happened in Pennsylvania last night with the riots. So it's going to be, I'm going to predict right now, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, and Texas, I guess. All Trump. Like that's pretty much the election usually.
Yeah, I used the, I looked to the rallies and the attendance and the YouTube views on each of the rally and the YouTube like buttons, and thumbs up and thumbs down buttons.
Mhm.
And they were like, in 2016, there was like 100 to 1 for Trump. And now it's about 1,000 to 1, I think.
Well, you just look at all those things that people are doing to show the truck rallies, the
Yeah.
driving around. That's why I think Biden stopped campaigning in the last week. Isn't not necessarily 100 Biden stuff. He just would go out. There'd be 200 Democrats, and there'd be 4,000 Trump supporters, and they'd just drown out his thing. He's like, you know what? I can't even talk to people anymore.
Yeah, I think that's especially interesting because we see a lot of creative approaches
Mm-hmm.
to campaigning that we haven't seen before, and that's part of the Trump thing, because he's a very successful businessman. You are successful in a market by being creative and out of the box thinking, stuff that hasn't been tried before, and I think that's a reason that the polls won't catch this stuff because it is so new. The idea of a tractor parade or a boat parade that hasn't come up before. Nobody mentioned that before, right? So
well, I think it has happened before, but it's more of an old form style of campaigning that we used to watch back before TV became the only real way of campaigning, right?
I don't know. I've never heard of a boat parade.
I don't know about a boat parade, but it used to be like when you watch some of these, especially these old British TV shows, they would have these guys driving around in cars doing a bullhorn and telling people who to vote for. And they were doing that at the end of World War II to all the way up until the 80s.
And when you had trains, it's kind of whistle stop. So this is, if you can hit 3 airports in a day, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what's that instrument behind you?
There's
banjos.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It looked like something different from this angle. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Banjos, excellent.
There's a mandolin down there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before he arrived on about his trying to learn these instruments, and of course Don here has had his own band for a little while.
So yeah, and also I like this basic theme of having your musical instruments in the background of your Zoom calls. I think that's just the best. I'm glad it's catching on.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do you play?
Not very well. It's just, and since COVID started, I haven't really had the time to pick it up. It just seems weird that I've been busier since the shutdown than I was before.
Huh. Actually, I've heard that musical instrument sales have gone up since COVID.
Yeah, one of my colleagues, his son works in a guitar shop. He said when those first stimulus checks came out, they were just swamped.
Really?
Said the store was full and people were looking for instruments they hadn't been able to afford before.
And they had time to work on it.
Yeah.
That's great.
So,
so even COVID has some nice side effects.
Yeah.
I'll join in on the fun.
Oh, look at you. Oh, look at you. Look at you.
Yeah.
Especially since so this one here, the clarinet, I actually learned how to play as a kid in the grade 6, 7, 8. So I would not know how to do it now, but used to be able to read music and do a little bit of that. And occasionally when I can go to my church and sing, I can follow along knowing some of the notes. I don't remember the names of them, but I can get an idea of what my pitch should be.
So let's see what else is happening. I mentioned something. My wife is a poll worker. Not that she's dancing in a bar, but she signed up to work at the local polling station. This is in California, and she starts Friday. We have almost 5 days of voting here in California, ending on Tuesday. And and she went through a few days of training because that's very important, and it's really important. And so she learned all the things. And we just got email. She just got an email recently, and they've clarified the rules for what you can wear when you come to vote. And yes, you can wear. You cannot wear the name of the candidate or their logo or a image of the candidate, but anything else is good to go. Okay. So if you have a Make America Great hat, you can wear that.
Huh. That's a little weird.
Now that's county by county. Well, otherwise you have to you have to decide whether this is a campaign slogan or not, right? And you don't want to be in that business. Right. So you can wear a Black Lives Matter shirt, or you can wear a Make America Great shirt. And again, this is county by county. Each county sets their rules.
Okay.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. Well, you can always have Kamala Harris outside your polling station exhorting you to vote for her.
That happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. She may have been outside I think it's 100 foot. I forget the.
Yeah, there's a different rule for every state, but I don't think anyone's going to, at most you would think cops would show up and say, hey, what are you doing? Get out of here. Move along.
And they go around with a rope, the right length, and they measure it out. So next week I'll give a report on how that went.
Okay, good. I know Rush Babe 49 is doing it as well.
So what's the polling arrangement in Nebraska?
Oh, nothing changed very much. I think they were still doing the absentees pretty much the way they were. There've been a lot more requests for them, but I think the Secretary of State was going out of his way to say, we'll be open, it will be safe.
So let's see. We've got let's see, first off, to say anything nasty on it? No. Okay, so we have the ballots right here. They got mailed out for California. And I get to fill these out and take it to the polling place, or mail it in, but I'd rather take it into the polling place.
Right.
So yeah, they mailed them all out to everybody, which, recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I mean, like if you are in some of the states that have been doing this for a while, I don't think are going to have any problem. Washington State and Oregon are perfectly good at this. They've been doing it for years. I don't think there's any like mass corruption going on in those states in regards to this. But some states like California, where they've never done it before now, are trying to do it, and I think there's going to be some craziness going on there.
It's not too different, because the primaries worked kind of like this also.
Okay. and
last year was, or whatever, 2 years ago was somewhat close. Yeah, I love that Kanye West is over here. Vice president. I don't know why. This is on the American Independent Party. Kanye West is there. I don't know what's going on.
At least he got himself some places. I know that he was. I know early on he was like missing a lot of dates where he had to get his name on the ballots, and he just let them go. But I guess California is one of those places where he could get his name on it.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I don't know. So yeah, they've sent out these to everybody, and I did check beforehand. I called them up and I made sure that the proper number of ballots were being sent to my household, my family.
And of course, it was 500, correct?
It was exactly the right number. Exactly 4. Good.
Okay.
Yeah. My father-in-law used to tell a story about going down to Austin, Texas in 1952 with his mother because his brother just had a baby born down there over the election. So his mom took her absentee ballot down there, and they drove all over Austin trying to trying to find a notary who'd notarize a Republican ballot.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those, when they know how to play the game. That,
Yep. And LBJ certainly knew how to play the game.
Oh,
From what
yeah.
I understand, there's some real crazy stories of some of the stuff he got up to.
yeah, that was-
A friend of mine, we used to have a really corrupt one party in Quebec called, I can't even remember the name of it. It was run by Guy Duplessis, and he was basically the dictator of Quebec for a while. And my friend's uncle told him this story. One time he's running a polling station, and they've just got the boxes, and they're just about this. And then some of Duplessis' guys come in, and they start like they take the ballot boxes and start filling them up with the additional ballots so that they would be, so that his party would win. And the guy's like, my friend's uncle says, "Hey, oh no, sorry, one goon, I guess, new to the ballot stuffing boxes, starts taking the box and starts walking outside. And then when the chief guy's like, hey, they're going to need that for the counting later. And my friend's like, or my friend's uncle is like, why don't you just tell us how many ballots you're adding into this thing and save us a lot of time and bother. And the guy's like, hey, I don't tell you how to do your job.
So yeah, I think a lot of the voter fraud has always been low tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
The lowest tech is grab some ballots, fill them out, and throw them in a box. Mm-hmm. I do see that they are doing. I feel better this year, actually, because there is some high tech voter fraud reduction measures. You can, in California, you can check to see how if your vote was registered or not online. There are some places that are doing blockchain voting, so that it's a publicly available way to privately check that your vote counts with using the blockchain technologies like Bitcoin, except it's not for money, it's for votes. And that's really interesting. I think there's going to be.
I think that's a real future of things to do.
I do. The idea of providing this image that's publicly there, it's publicly available. It doesn't give away the private. It's all private still, and anybody can check to see if their vote is there or not. And it checks every step for tampering. Mm-hmm. So it's got a lot of potential. I think that could, if you want to make money, I think a startup company in that area would do really well.
Yep.
In exactly 4 years.
There's that, and I know I was listening to stuff about blockchain being used in Africa to finally have the chain of evidence on property ownership, because that's a big problem in Africa. Is that you got these warlords come in and kill everyone, and then how you can prove that you own the land, or the government just burns the records, and how do you prove anything? And now that they can actually secure your identity with this unbreakable computer program.
Right. So the first applications of blockchain were for currency. So you could do drug deals with and yeah, that's all very interesting. But I think the real solution is things like voting. And I think that's probably the best application of it. Certainly electronic voting was always questioned. You could somebody could flip the bits.
Yep.
Somebody could. And, well, we need some protection against that. We need to check to see if this has been tampered with at all. And this can do that. Mm-hmm. Next topic. What are we doing here?
Running into the final half, final quarter here. It's the usual questions.
So I've been popping up the Trump rally posts. They're always a lot of fun to do, and people seem to like the dancing Trump icon.
I like the one with the zombie thing, and I can't remember who posted it, but they showed me I watched that thing 5 times today of Bob Hope talking about Democrats.
The classic. So Trump's doing 2 rallies in Arizona today. Yes. And the first one, they had like an F-35 flew over. Oh, man. Brilliant.
Yep.
So it's a lot of fun. They're having a lot of fun. And it was three rallies yesterday in the Midwest. And they're just having a good time.
I guess we can ask you a couple of the Ricochet questions.
Oh, yeah.
Why did you join Ricochet, or how did you find this site?
Through the main podcast, I guess. I listened to that for a while and then decided maybe I ought to sign up. So.
Come for the podcast.
Yes.
Stay for the conversation.
Yeah. So it's been quite enjoyable. I'm not on any other social media.
And I think you're one of our regular pit villains.
Yeah. I discovered that maybe a pit or 2 ago. It is kind of fun.
I dive in every so often, but it's just like make a comment, come back. Oh, 2,000 posts later. Like, okay, maybe something. There's definitely been a conversation between then and now.
Yeah, it's probably a little like what Twitter has become, not what it was meant for.
Yeah.
Well, Twitter, I'm amazed at Twitter. I initially wrote that off as crap. I said, this is the dumbest idea. You can only post this much.
Yeah.
What's the use of that? And first off, it's like the greatest form of snarky humor I've ever seen. I mean, you hit enormous levels of snark here. And the other is to blip out current events. Oh my goodness. That's great.
Last week it was like the 4-year anniversary of the terrorist attack on Parliament Hill, and it kind of came up. And I just remember on the day when that happened, I and my coworkers were glued to Twitter for any kind of news coming out of that, because like one thing I was reading was like there's a guy who was like, no, I guess this must have been 6 years ago, but yeah, it was like there was a reporter and he was talking to the Minister of Justice at the time about like our new legislation that was coming out, and he's like, okay, well, I'm just listening to the minister talking about this. Was that a gunshot? Security's in the room. They've ordered us onto the floor. Oh my God, I think we're going to die. Like stuff like that. Like just crazy kind of stuff.
Well, wit and snark, I guess, are both should be short.
Right.
Maybe there's a fine line between the two.
Yep, there is sometimes. I know that there are people who make their living doing nothing but trolling on Twitter, making money doing this. This is like insanity of what happens in the world of the internet. So and I guess the other question, what's your favorite part about Ricochet?
I really like the discussion and the that it's done at a high level, and there's a lot of people around here. There's a lot of people on the site who are quite accomplished at what they do, and their comments generally mean a lot more than someone that's reporting on something that maybe doesn't have a clue. And and it's generally respectful and even if they're wrong.
Yep.
And I don't. Yeah.
What's you have a favorite thread right now that you've been enjoying the most?
Oh, I've been kind of stuck in the pit here for a while. But,
okay. I see.
But Boss Mongo's writing thread has been worth more than the cost of admission on that. And some of the other people that have written serialized stories, some of those are quite good.
Yeah, it makes for an interesting publishing medium.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm liking the technological growth Moore's Law one. That was from 2 days ago.
Okay. No,
It's pretty interesting.
The one that I saw just here right now with from Doc Bastian, our guest last week, missing person alert for presidential candidate. He's talking about how he goes on CNN and he just can't find anything about Biden at all. Like nothing good, nothing bad, just
Really?
nothing.
Well, you can't
Just
say
not
something
mentioned.
good.
Wait a second. There's nothing. Well, when you looked, there was nothing on CNN about Biden.
Yeah, nothing good, nothing about denouncing Hunter Biden, nothing about the the vice president's schedule, nothing about what he's up to, just a lot of stuff about the president, and it's all negative, of course, and other breaking events and talking about that, but nothing about the Biden campaign is officially over. Like,
So what are the implications of that? Well, other than what you just said. But wow.
Mhm.
Because they're not even pushing for him.
Yeah.
They're not.
I think they all think he's going to lose. I think, and they don't want to talk about it. There has been a few news stories coming out, starting to brace people for the president's winning again. And that seems to be like, this is what we might have missed about what's the polling is. They're starting to make excuses for a bad night.
Now, I haven't seen the Biden schedule published anywhere.
Mhm.
On Trump's site, it's right there.
Mhm.
But I don't see it published at the Biden site. I looked because when I did one of my Trump rally posts, somebody said, "Well, what about Biden?" I said, "Okay, I'll do a Biden rally post with the dancing Bidens and stuff." And but it's really hard for me to scoop up the rallies, certainly more than a day in advance.
Mhm.
I mean, I usually find them after they've already started or something.
Mhm.
So they're not even trying. I mean, you'd think website, upcoming events list. No.
Well, he put a lid on his public appearances for 3.
Well, no, he's been showing up one or two places,
Mhm.
as has been Kamala.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't hear any. You don't see any announcements of them anywhere. It's like it's already started and there's 8 people there or something. In fact, the Trump supporters are able to find the rallies more than the Biden supporters. We've had a number of Biden rallies where the Trump supporters gather at the entrance and welcome the Biden supporters in with Trump flags, of course.
Yep.
But it's tough for them too.
So,
And that's pretty strange.
so how much of the shutdown has allowed people that would normally be working to go do other things?
Maybe that. So, but yeah, and then when Kamala speaks, it's usually pretty short. It's like 15 minutes or so. Trump does, 90 minutes.
Oh yeah, it's a show. I've watched parts of those
show.
rallies. It's entertaining. It's like a show. Like people like. I think that my favorite one was the one I was watching via Dr. Steve Turley. I don't know if you guys watch that guy. He's like you, Don, a real cheerleader for the president.
Uh-huh.
And he was at one of the rallies, I think, in New Hampshire. And he was there, and he says there's this great scene where it's like, so Trump gets up and says, "Hey, who's going to vote? How many people are voted?" And a handful of people are put up their hands, and it's like, "Who's voting on election day?" And everyone's like, "Geez," like,
Yeah, I think.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I think he may have learned a lot about timing on TV.
Mhm.
TV work, and it seemed like 2016 there's just a lot of things that he built up to, and he seemed to have the timing right.
Mhm. And we've had his second debate performance was a winner. I mean,
yeah.
and the only thing I didn't like there was that he didn't have as many zingers as I felt Biden had. At least 3 or 4 good zingers versus the president. But he just came out and it reminded me just so much of 2004, where Bush doesn't think he has to prepare for it, and Kerry wins, and then Bush comes back for the next 2 and wins both of them.
The other thing is that the Vice President Pence and Trump's kids are all out there campaigning for him and doing rallies. I think Eric Trump, Don Jr. and all. Sometimes they're doing 3 a day.
Yep.
Laura Trump got was it Laura? No, Ivanka. Ivanka Trump got an enormous showing at a rally a day or 2 ago. And for some reason, Hunter Biden is not campaigning for his dad. I do not understand.
I can't understand why this guy who supposedly loves his father so much can't get out there and support him. This is so disappointing.
Some people got to work.
Yeah, got to go and work for those Chinese companies. We know he's very dedicated to working for China.
Wait, how many other kids does Biden have?
I think he's got a daughter, and I think who's not politically at all activated at all, and of course Bo unfortunately passed away.
Right.
Yeah.
So so all we see is Biden, and sometimes Jill's doing a micro rally, and sometimes Kamala's doing a micro rally. That's about it. No, it's gonna be.
Yeah, well,
it's going to be a landslide.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I really do hope so, because then we can avoid a lot of, if it's a close one, it's going to be a knockout, drag-out fight. But if it's clearly a landslide for the president, we'll all be better off, I think.
So when Trump was talking about taking the House the other night.
Yeah, I'm hearing that's not as likely because of a lot of factors that just don't make it an easy win, but it is possible. It's not the
I think it is
impossible to get.
I think it is. If you've looked at my analysis of the congressional districts, about a year ago almost, I published an analysis of how much it would cost to flip the 235 congressional districts based on the number of votes you needed and the number of people who didn't vote, and that ratio. And there are a lot, like at least 50. Well, you'd need 18. No, I think it's 16 now to flip. And we've already flipped one, Van Drew. And the, what's her name? In Southern California with the sexy photos and stuff. Those 2 have already been flipped.
Yep.
Right. So I think so we need very few, and there were a lot of close races 2 years ago, where if you tapped in to some of the people who didn't vote before, you can flip it pretty easily.
Yeah. If it is a real blowout, and that would be very possible.
So my article noticed,
it is breaking that they will keep the Senate, from what I'm hearing. So
I'm sure.
If
but
nothing else, you'll have a break.
And so what I did was I just threw the numbers out, the cost for each congressional district, and sure, the very Democrat-oriented congressional districts are untouchable. Yeah, I understand that. But there's a lot that were dirt cheap to flip. And so I think it's possible.
Yep.
Well, going back to your question about the House and term limits, my solution to that always was, well, what would happen if you did took Newt Gingrich at his word and said that most of the country was conservative, and then packed the House, got it down to approximately the right number of representatives so that it was a small group. The districts were small and compact enough that someone could walk them and get it to where something where the lower house has about the same representation as the rest of the industrialized world. I don't know what that mean for the House, maybe 6,000 members, but
not 6,000.
well,
It would be a lot. It'd be like probably England equivalent, which is where they got like 600 or 700, or sorry, yeah,
Well,
600 or 700 MPs.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I know here it's about one congressional district is about 600,000 people or so, 650, around there. Well, yeah, or a state. You have the smaller states which can border chunk between one representative and two and such. But we do the best we can. I think it should be enough.
I had always thought that would actually maybe solve a lot of those problems, because the power of the individual senator is reduced, or the individual congressman is reduced.
If you had 330 million people divided by 250,000 is 1,320.
Okay.
Big
The
house.
problem I see with that, it sounds good. It sounds good to me. However, the problem I see with that is, at the current rate of 1 per 600,000, it's hard enough to find good people. I think if you need to find 5 times that,
you would strengthen the power of the individual party at the expense of a good representative. That's what would happen.
It's so difficult to find good representatives right now.
I think you can find more good representatives. I don't think that's the problem. It's just like being able to get through. Like, we get decent people at 100,000 a pop here in Canada. It's not that hard. I just think what would happen would be the macro effect of having 1,300 would be you would have a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
The parties would become more important than ever, and the individual would be drowned out because no one would know who their congressman would be.
But it is an interesting point, though. I mean, it is an interesting point that back in the old days, one congressman represented far fewer people.
We have, in the state, we've got one for about 6,000, and nonpartisan and term limited. I think you can have 2 of those 3 things, but work well, but not all 3.
Interesting.
But
okay, well, I think we're running down the time here. It's coming to the end of the program. It's been a pretty good interview, kind of a bit more laid back than some of our other ones, say Erhant. But I'm going to
less
say
twitchy.
Yeah. I'm going to see. I don't know if Dawn, if you have any interest in trying to do some sort of a show on Election Day, and give her.
Well, I think we're probably going to have the live feed going.
Yeah.
Well, the Ricochet live feed goes all the time, actually. And you just go there. But I think it's going to be a big thing going on there. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know what the competition is.
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely people.
You know what? Let me think about this. This might be kind of interesting. We'd have some fun with this. Have people rotating in or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. We could try and get the people. If people want, we'll just post a link and have people come in, and we'll just. I have the ability to host this on a live stream on YouTube if we wanted to try to do that, or we can like broadcast it out, or just record like we're like Louder with Crowder or something like that. Anyways,
interesting.
This has been pretty good, but I can announce our next person we're going to interview, and this will be post-election. So we'll be how hungover we will be with Colombo, who's agreed to come on board.
Excellent choice.
And I'm going to reach out to just a few more people afterwards about joining up. And as always, I go through our group list. So if you're watching this at home, join the group on Ricochet, and I'll be talking to you. Okay, until then, bye-bye.
Well, 'twas a pleasure. Thanks for coming.
It was.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.